Please say good morning. He is one of my true favorites. He got my fat out of the fire a couple of times. Ladies and gentlemen, First Amendment attorney, mouthpiece for the media, Tom Kelly. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Peter.
Hey, it's good to have you on the show. I'm a big fan. Thanks for doing this, Tom.
Well, thank you. It's mutual.
Yeah, and congratulations. Let's back this all the way out. The Daily Camera and, well, first of all, Charlie Brennan. Well, let me back it all the way out. Who initiated the lawsuit to look at the release of John Bonet's grand jury indictment? That's a better way to do this. And how did you get involved?
It was Charlie Brennan and the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, based in Arlington, Virginia. Charlie came to them to see if they could support this lawsuit. They came to me and said, how would you like to do this pro bono? And we have a good relationship with that organization. My firm said yes, and the case went forward.
On what grounds did you request that the public had the right to see what Alex Hunter, in fact, hid from the public?
Well, there were two, essentially. Colorado law requires that an indictment be public, come hell or high water. This was an indictment issued by the grand jury but not signed by the prosecutor, which means it can't go forward. But we contended it was nonetheless an indictment, and thus disclosure was mandatory. Alternatively, we asked the judge to use his discretion to disclose it. But we didn't have to get that far. The judge found an indictment signed by the grand jury is an indictment. The prosecutor does not have to go forward, but he at the very least has to tender the indictment to the court and make public his decision not to go forward. There are a lot of reasons for that. One is that there's a Colorado statute that gives a citizen a right to go to court and challenge a prosecutor's decision not to go forward. In any event, the scheme is to permit the public to have a chance to scrutinize the prosecutor's decision, whatever it might be.
And so were you surprised the outcome? I was hoping for it, but I don't have any expertise on this. Tom, did you think it was going to come your way?
I did.
Okay.
I felt good about it going in. We fortunately had a judge who was very careful and willing to apply the law and let the chips fall as they may.
You know what's interesting, and I've had this conversation with half a dozen people. The grand jury, to the layman, what does the grand jury say about John and Patsy Ramsey?
Basically, what they say is that whatever happened inside the house that night was something they at least knew about and participated in keeping from coming to light.
How can the average person read that? What and again, what does that say, or what does it mean?
Well, it certainly calls into question the intruder theory. It suggests that the grand jury felt that whatever happened happened among the three people in the house that night. And it also suggests that they're not exactly sure what did happen.
Yeah. My attempt to understand it is the same problem everybody's had for all the years is who did what? Did John do this or did Patsy do that? Did Patsy do this or did John do this? And so, and if my understanding is, then they really indict them both because they're not quite sure who does what. Is that fair?
Well, it certainly is that's likely from reading the indictment, and I can understand it because I feel the same way.
Sure, me too. I mean, as I said to somebody the other day, I don't know what happened, but I believe I do. Let me ask you a hypothetical question, and this goes directly to Alex Hunter. Because I am such a geek about this, I read their book, and the Ramseys wrote a book called The Death of Innocence, and they shopped this book, and nobody wanted anything to do with them, and they started professing heavy Christianity, and they found a religious house that published Death of Innocence, and they started appearing on religious shows and the rest of the stuff. This is page 357. Tom, of their book. The battered justice system had creaked and shuddered, but it had worked. We had not been indicted. People would finally see what the grand jury's decision as to our vindication. Whatever time had been lost with the grand jury, hearing must be made up quickly. Then 2 pages later, page 359, this is John himself. After looking at all the evidence, or lack of it, the grand jury of our peers had not indicted Patsy and me. It seemed the system had functioned as our Constitution had intended. We were innocent, truly grateful. Now, how could Alex Hunter, who knew that the grand jury wanted to indict the two of them for the murder, allow that book to be published and not issue a challenge?
Well, not clear. I think Alex Hunter, when he announced the discharge of the grand jury and that there would be no prosecution, pretty much implied the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, he may have felt that he was required to do that by grand jury secrecy. Clearly, he was wrong. That is what our judge ruled. But I think you'll recall this grand jury was requested by the governor.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Worked for over a year examining witnesses and looking at evidence. And to announce publicly that it has indicted but the prosecution will not go forward would have taken some guts on the part of any prosecutor, kind of pressure he was under. He believes the grand jury secrecy required that decision. That really concerned me. That's why I got involved in that case. I think when the grand jury acts, the public's entitled to know. When the DA doesn't prosecute, the public's entitled to know.
But how could he have allowed that book to be published and the Ramseys to traipse around? And then I come back to Mary Keenan Lacey, who offers this letter where she has no authority to, in essence, claim innocence of the Ramseys. She also had access to that grand jury. If Hunter had it, she had it. And she wouldn't have, and another one, of course, is, I don't know if he had any information, but Michael Tracy, who ends up grooming John Mark Carr. But what I'm saying is, this is what I say about Mary Keenan Lacey. She had access to this stuff, Tom. And then she turns around and writes this ridiculous letter exonerating John and Patsy, her good friends. How is the average citizen, and I know you're in the business, but how's the average person supposed to see that?
Well, I think it's a breach of public trust.
I do too.
But that, then again, I'm kind of a, public access.
I know.
Voluptuary.
I like that word, a voluptuary. What does that mean?
It means that I really feel that important governmental actions like this should be scrutinized. And
we're seeing that almost every day now in Washington, D.C., aren't we?
Well, not as much as we should, but yes.
Yeah, I agree. But so where does it go from here? Tom Kelly's with us. I just think the guy hung the moon. He's the attorney who represented Charlie Brennan, and they got the indictment on John and Patsy released. It is 25 before the hour 7. We had Kaplis and Silverman here yesterday. What happens next, do you think, with this story or this case?
I have no idea. I really don't. This is outside my area of expertise. You can pose hypotheticals, and I can sit here and speculate, I guess. But it's not clear where it's going to go. It's not clear where it can go at this point. Near as I can tell, all statutes of limitations that might come out of what the grand jury, or for crimes that came out of what the grand jury did, have run. So, it may be that too much time has gone by. Had we known of this back in 1999,
that's right,
things might have gone in a different direction.
I agree. Given the one target of the 99 indictment, and Silverman seems to believe there's you can't. He believes you could also make this a murder one, but we'll see what happens. It's fascinating to me, and you understand politics in many ways better than I do, but Charlie Brennan, who I think did a yeoman's job in all of this, from the books and all of his hard work, and then Brennan gets away from the media and then campaigns for Stan Garnett who he later turns around and sues. And I still think there's an amazing backstory to the story. And I'm not asking you to comment, but I think there's an amazing backstory. And somebody wants something in the open for good reasons. And I love what Garnett, we're going to try and get Stan on the radio show, what Garnett said. We're not priests. This isn't the Catholic Church.
I like that rhetoric.
Oh, I love that. I thought that was great. So, in conclusion, it's been a long struggle. And I think there are a lot of people right now, after 13 years, and Patsy, of course, is gone. John's remarried. I was saying, bet that woman's sleeping with one eye open right now. But the public had been told the jurors had not taken a vote, or nor had they elected to indict anyone. And in fact, John and Patsy Ramsey claim it in their book. Alex Hunter had his hands in his pockets and wouldn't say a word. Mary Keenan Lacey, the same thing. There has to be some reckoning for these people as well, but maybe just the loss of face or image is enough. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Well, this is where I kind of bow out. I think it's for the public to decide whether there was a breach of trust here, but it got my hackles up. That's why I was in the case. I believe there was. I think the public should have been aware, and that public pressure in 1999 could have been exerted, and possibly a different outcome obtained.
I was thinking about calling last night. I've been going over my notes on this. As Chuck Green, who was at the Post at the time, and he fought this out as well. And I wonder what Chuck's thoughts are this morning, because if there were two newspaper people, and Chuck was a columnist at the time, but it was Chuck and Charlie, and they were just, and of course you were there, and I mean, I just watched an anguish with this, as so many people did. And for anyone to, what do you say to the people, Tom, that say, well, we have to get over this and let it go and, drive on and all those kinds of ridiculous statements? We have a dead little girl, don't we?
That's right. And I think some judgments have to be made here. Just exactly what can be done going forward is not clear. Personally, I see myself someday moving on from this case.
Yeah.
But in terms of doing something right now, I'm going to have to leave that to the people that are in that business.
Thanks, Irish. You're the man. You are the man.
Say hi to Chuck Green for me.
I promise. We're going to try and contact him tomorrow and have him on the show. But I hadn't, I thought about Chuck last night, and and it's almost though there's like this ongoing reunion of people that are turning up and calling each other and saying, "See, Peter, you were right," or "This story over here," and then the people who were on the other side of this seem to be heading out into the weeds. So, thanks, Tom. Thanks for everything you've always done for me and what you did on this one, brother man. You take a bow. Thank you.
Hey.